Message and data rates may apply.
When did it become okay for men to be lazier, softer, fatter? We need to bring the men of this country back to greatness. And it's easier than ever with Ageless Male Max, a patent-pending formula with an ingredient that helps boost your total testosterone, promoting greater increases in muscle size and twice the reduction of body fat percentage than exercise alone. Plus, an amazing 64% increase in nitric oxide, which can be handy in the gym and in the bedroom. Take your manhood to the max by trying your first 30-day bottle free. Just pay shipping and handling. Not 10 days, not 15 days, but a full 30-day supply free when you text the word LIFT to 797979. Finally, a formula that boosts total testosterone. If your results with Ageless Male Max are too intense, please decrease use. For your free bottle, text LIFT to 797979. Text LIFT to 797979.
Listen up, people. We have a big favor to ask you, and we promise it won't take up too much of your time. You know, our show is supported by some fantastic sponsors, right? Well, we'd love to hear your feedback. Head to podcast.study and fill out a short anonymous survey. That's it. We swear. Again, that's podcast.study.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. Oh, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the airwaves of ESPN Radio, 250 plus markets across the United States of America, plus ESPN Radio and Sirius XM, Channel 80, and obviously over the national television airwaves, simulcast over the national television airwaves of ESPN News. The number to call them, as always, is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. What did I say? What did I say? Now, I know we got a New York Jets playing tonight in Detroit with Sam Darnold, the rookie, starting. I know yesterday afternoon we saw a 37-year-old quarterback in Eli Manning look relatively pedestrian and average in the New York Giants' loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars, an elite defense in the Jacksonville Jaguars, even though I saw Eli Manning missing targets all over the place periodically, that is. But when you talk about elite quarterbacks, when you talk about a reason for the city of angels, Los Angeles, for the city of Gotham City, New York City, and every damn city in between, when you talk about cities salivating for the greatness of a quarterback, I mean, damn it, we might as well say, we might be able to say Boston wish they had him too. I'm talking about the one and only Aaron Rodgers. And you know where I'm going with this. I tried to tell y'all again. I'm going to say it because evidently people have a hard time listening to me and understanding me where I'm coming from when I say this. He's a bad man. Whoa! This brother's on another level. I'm just trying to tell you something. Listen, if you don't know, you better ask somebody. I tried to tell y'all. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, let me confess that I almost shedded tears last night. I almost cried. When Aaron Rodgers went down in the second quarter, and he was grabbing that knee, and he had to be wheeled off of Lambeau Field. I'm not going to lie to you. I thought the season was over. I really, really did. I said it's over. He's not coming back. It's over. The season is over. The Green Bay Packers are absolutely positively nothing without him. And their season of championship aspirations has been reduced to rubble in the blink of an eye. And then Aaron Rodgers, obviously, when he got wheeled off, Deshaun Kaiser, formerly of the Cleveland Browns, was a turnover waiting to happen, was absolutely god-awful. Almost got Hugh Jackson fired last season. He was so awful. He comes up in there. There's a strip sack by the hands of Khalil Mack. There's also a pick six by Khalil Mack. Listen, Khalil Mack just signed 9 days ago. He's clearly not in football shape. But there's a reason this four-time All-Pro, who made an All-Pro team both as a defensive end and a linebacker, There's a reason why the Bears gave up 2 first-round picks to get him. There's a reason why the Bears were willing to give this brother the money they were willing to give him. There's a reason that everybody should have their eyes on John Gruden as we speak in Oakland, California. You can't pick up the phone and call the Mac Daddy himself, Khalil Mack. You can't sit up there and use your salesman-like approach, your motivational tactics to see what you can do to convince this dude to stay in Oakland. When approached by reporters, I believe it was Chris Collinsworth, but I'm not sure, and Khalil Mack was asked if more of a concerted effort had been made to reach him and to have a conversation with him and to say, look, we want you here in Oakland come hella high water, and ultimately Las Vegas come hella high water. We want you as a part of the silver and black. And we're going to do everything we can to take care of you. Would that have made a difference? Khalil Mack said yes. He said yes. And the fact that he said yes is all that we should need to know. But it didn't go down that way, y'all. It didn't go down that way. And as a result of it not going down that way, you see what we have before us. What we have before us is a situation right now where Oakland, who knows what's going to happen, Khalil Mack and that Chicago Bears defense is no joke, but they went up against the baddest man on the planet. And let me be very, very clear. Aaron Rodgers does not have Tom Brady's resume. Aaron Rodgers does not have 5 rings. Aaron Rodgers does not have 8 trips to the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers is not, resume-wise, what Tom Brady is. But ladies and gentlemen, I don't think I'm stepping that far out on a limb when I say to you that I believe, that I truly believe in my heart of hearts, that Aaron Rodgers is the greatest talent at the quarterback position I've ever seen. 39-yard touchdown pass to Geronimo Allison, another 12-yarder to Devontae Adams, a 75-yarder when he zipped in a ball over across midfield to Randall Cobb, who scampered 75 yards for a touchdown, helping the Green Bay Packers overcome a 20-point deficit, 20-0, the largest deficit overcome by Aaron Rodgers in his career. And the Green Bay Packers ultimately upset the Chicago Bears 24-23. You can call it an upset or you can choose not to. But in the end, if you're the Chicago Bears and you got a 20-point lead with that defense, you are not supposed to lose that game. But Aaron Rodgers is a bad brother. He is something special. And as a result, the Green Bay Packers are 1-0 on the season. The Chicago Bears are 0-1. I will confess to you, I'm not going to hold it against so much but Chicago's defense, because I got news for you. The Chicago Bears, sit up there and say what you want to, but that defense should be special this year. They really, really should. And when you think about what they bring to the table, I'm sorry, I'm not ruling anything out about the Chicago Bears because I think that defense is going to be special. I think Khalil Mack is going to be special. The one thing that they needed was an edge rusher. And the fact that you now have that with Akeem Hicks and the rest of the crew, I got news for you. The Chicago Bears should make some noise. So the NFC North is going to be incredibly, incredibly competitive because between Minnesota and Green Bay and Chicago, and we'll see what Detroit gives us tonight when they're going up against the New York Jets, NFC North is going to be very, very competitive. It really, really should. One can make the same argument about the NFC East. We saw Philadelphia handle their business against Atlanta. We know that it's week 1. And because it's week 1, you expect people to look a bit rusty and not themselves. We get all of that. The other thing that we have to pay attention to is what the rest of the division is. Because when I looked at the division, I saw the Dallas Cowboys yesterday against Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers. Dallas's defense looked impressive. Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers looked a bit hobbled, even though he ran the football effectively and rushed in for a touchdown and at times looked very formidable. The reality is that their offense wasn't that impressive. And Cam Newton's going to need to run the football a lot in order for Carolina's offense to be effective. And if you're Ron Rivera and the crew and North Turner, do you really, really want Cam Newton not to run? You probably do because he's the franchise, but that's when he's at his best. The flip side to it is that even though you were going up against a good Carolina defense, the Dallas Cowboys offense is anemic. How in the hell do you justify giving Ezekiel Elliott just 15 carries? Tell me what sense that makes. How does that make sense to anybody? He's Ezekiel Elliott. He's averaging over 4 yards a carry. Last year, he averaged about 24 yards a carry. 24 carries per game, rather. He was either that or the year before. In his first 2 years in the league, he averaged 21 and 24 carries a game, respectively, if I remember correctly. How do you justify not giving Ezekiel Elliott the damn ball when Des Bryant's gone, when Jason Witten's gone, when you're relying on Terrence Williams, some dude named Deontay Thompson, Cole Beasley, Allen Hurns? How do you not give Ezekiel Elliott the football? How do you possibly justify that? Makes no sense whatsoever. Just reminds me how overrated Jason Garrett is. That's all it does. That's all it does. Dallas's defense, however, impressive. And as an aside, I just want to sit up there and say I didn't blame DeMarcus Lawrence one bit when it was brought to his attention how Des Bryant was tweeting about the Cowboys and how he wants to be a New England Patriot or a Washington Redskin and all of this other stuff. DeMarcus Lawrence is like, yo, man, we just lost a football game. You think I give a damn about some tweets from Des Bryant or anybody else? We just lost. That is the right attitude to have. DeMarcus Lawrence is absolutely positively right. And we all need to be very, very clear about that. Right here, right now. And this notion, I got news for you. I believe in Dak Prescott. I actually like Dak Prescott. But what he was his rookie campaign, he damn sure wasn't that last season. And game 1 of this season, he wasn't impressive again. Balls were underthrown. They were overthrown. There was an absence of touch there. I understand that a lot of these teams, you got to get the practice in and what have you. But Dak Prescott was not impressive. He was off. He was absolutely positively off, which we all know. Let's just call it like it is. Let's just call it like it is. He was off, and that is that. And somehow, some way, they're going to have to figure this out. By the way, if you don't believe me with what I'm telling you about DeMarcus Lawrence of the Dallas Cowboys, listen to what he had to say about Dez's tweets to the media after the game. Take it away. Okay, we don't have that sound ready. My apologies. Let's go. Then
there's my guy. I ain't tripping. You know what I'm saying?
No more comments.
No, I mean, what I'm supposed to say?
Until Dan Bailey tweets it. And then you really got to start.
Bro, why we sitting here, bro? We just lost the game and y'all talking about some tweets. Y'all really think I care about what Dez tweet or anybody tweets?
There you have it. We understand exactly where he's coming from. But in the end, here's what it comes down to. Dallas Cowboys ain't going anywhere. Dallas Cowboys ain't going to win this year either. Because their offense ain't going to be that impressive. It's just that simple. They can't get it together. Offense, defense, special teams, the three aligning with one another. Can't happen. Hasn't happened in 23 years. Ain't going to start now. I don't think Dallas is going to the playoffs at all. I am very surprised at how the Washington Redskins looked yesterday. Adrian Peterson looked pretty damn good. 100 touchdown, 166 total yards. Adrian Peterson was balling. Now, do I think that will last? No. Do I think Father Time has taken a step away from him? Yes. But he still can ball. That combined with Alex Smith not turning the ball over and getting production from other assets, Redskins were going up against the Arizona Cardinals, which I don't think is a good team this year. So we'll have to wait and see about what transpires. But in the end, the Redskins looked pretty good yesterday. The Giants, not so much. Now, you could make the argument that the New York Giants were going up against an elite defense in the Jacksonville Jaguars. You could also make the argument that Jalen Ramsey's supposed to be one of those dudes, and look what happened. Odell Beckham Jr., 11 receptions, 111 yards. Hadn't played since week 4 last year because of that injury, but he comes out and reminds you why he's so great. Eli Manning was underthrown and over. Eli Manning didn't look any better than Dak Prescott. Eli Manning reminded you he's 37 years of age. Eli Manning reminded you that he isn't what he used to be. And that more is expected. And I got to tell you something. There's a question mark as to whatever he's going to produce. These are all legitimate things. But we'll get into that as the show progresses. I got to sit up there I promise you today, ladies and gentlemen, unless he is under a rock, has a family emergency, or something has happened to him, I promise you, my buddy Carlton from Tampa, formerly of Massachusetts, Carlton will call into the show today. Because my God, did Ryan Fitzpatrick, the former quarterback for the New York Jets, put on an absolute show against New Orleans yesterday. 417 passing yards. 4 touchdowns, 21 of 28 passing. I don't think Jameis Winston's going to have the job wait for him when he gets back. And when you look at Tampa's receiving course with Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson, I got to tell you something. Tampa might surprise a few people. Now, it don't help that you gave up 40 points to Drew Brees and the Saints. Because your defense is supposed to be better than that, even though Drew Brees is something special. But once again, after one game, we find ourselves looking at the New Orleans Saints and saying it's just Drew Brees and that offense, and everything is predicated on that because Sean Payton can't seem to get the man a damn defense to save his life. You won a Super Bowl 8 years ago. Damn it, what have you done since? 8, 9 years ago, what have you done since? And could you get Drew Brees a defense, pretty please, with sugar on top? I mean, damn. Get the man a defense. So we got that to think about there. In the AFC, I'm in a good mood. I'm not going to talk about my Steelers just yet. I don't want to. Because if I talk about the Steelers, I might lose my mind. Big Ben Roethlisberger, 3 interceptions in the first half. 5 turnovers for the game. No Le'Veon Bell. James Conner filled in admirably. But damn it, you still need Le'Veon Bell. And you tied a team that's 1-31 over the last 2 years. It was 0-16 last year. Denzel Ward, by the way, that other first-round pick for the Cleveland Browns, is special. And Myles Garrett is coming. Yes, Cincinnati beat Indy with Andrew Luck's return. Don't care because of Cincinnati. I don't care what they do. They're not going to win in the playoffs, and I don't think Marvin Lewis should have his job. That's my feeling on that. I watched the Baltimore Ravens destroy the Buffalo Bills 47-3, and what I walked away with was 2 things. The Buffalo Bills might be the worst team this decade. They might be the worst team we've seen this decade. And this dude, Nathan Peterman, ladies and gentlemen, how is he a quarterback? I mean, you want an argument made on behalf of Colin Kaepernick. What? Don't even bring up protests. Don't even bring up collusion. You don't even have to say it. All you have to do is point the finger at the city of Buffalo and say, that's their quarterback, but I can't have a job in the NFL. Nathan Peterman is the greatest argument on behalf of Colin Kaepernick that exists in the NFL today. How does this man have a quarterback job? How? Ladies and gentlemen, he passed for 24 yards. 24 yards passing. You can't make this up. You can't make this up. Ladies and gentlemen, that means that if he played the entire NFL season, 16 games, he wouldn't eclipse 1,000 yards. Passing. I mean, it doesn't get more pathetic. I mean, I don't know if there's a higher definition of patheticness than that. I mean, what an atrocity. An atrocity. You can't make this up. Colin Kaepernick, you don't even have to bring up collusion. Just look at the judge and go like this. Nathan Peterman has a job as a quarterback in the NFL. What evidence do you need other than that? Judge should hand down the gavel. He's got a damn point. He's got a point. Y'all got to be colluding because how does this guy have a job but Colin Kaepernick does not? That's all you have to do. That's how bad Nathan Peterman is. I mean, just an atrocity. An atrocity. Sean Watson didn't have a good day. He looked better than that, but he didn't have a good day. Not against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. So all of that stuff and more are here to be talked about right here in the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, and ESPN News. 888-SAY-ESPN is the number to call up. That's 888-729-3776. I mean, listen. We'll continue to talk about all of this as the show progresses. We will. But I will tell you this. We have to get to a bigger subject, and it's unavoidable. The biggest story of the weekend was what happened at the U.S. Open in women's tennis. with Serena Williams, in fairness, being thoroughly outplayed by 20-year-old Naomi Osaka of Japan. For those of you who don't know, she ultimately was deducted a point and a game eventually because Serena Williams just went off. You know, the referee had warned her about receiving coaching from the box from a coach. Serena Williams immediately walked over to the official and said, "I don't cheat. I would rather lose than cheat." The coach ultimately admitted he was coaching her, but he doesn't think she saw him trying to coach her. He was telling her to move up closer to the line. Eventually, she got frustrated, slammed her racket, got deducted a point. She made a case about that. And the coach's name, by the way, is Patrick Mouratoglou. And then after she made a case about that, she demanded an apology from him. He did tell her, the coach, Carlos Ramos, told her he was not going to apologize to her. And she called him a thief. He deducted the game from her. She went ballistic, made a scene. And a lot of people in the fans and attendants and everybody, they were booing profusely once she ultimately lost the match. They were very supportive of Serena. The official is usually welcomed on stage at the end of the tournament. He was not, because obviously he didn't need to be up there. Serena refused to shake his hand. She said, "You owe me an apology," et cetera, et cetera. And she was also making the case that there are plenty of men who do far worse. And she doesn't believe it was right. She brought up the issue of sexism, etc. Let me say this. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who don't know my positions about Serena Williams, I have been on the record stating on many occasions she is the GOAT. If she were a man, we'd be calling her the greatest to have ever lived. We wouldn't be saying this about Muhammad Ali or Michael Jordan or anybody like that. We'd be saying it was Serena Williams if she were a man. She is the GOAT. When you consider the sustained level of excellence, it's undeniable. When you consider from whence she comes from, where she came from, Compton, California, the trials and tribulations, the battles, the adversity that she's been able to overcome in her life, playing in the world of tennis, which Patrick McEnroe acutely pointed out on the telecast yesterday on SportsCenter. She's overcome a lot. So if you throw context into the equation in that regard, there's no denying the greatness of Serena Williams, even more so. But strictly and solely as it pertains to her assertions about Carlos Ramos, the official, this past weekend, Serena Williams was not in the right. She was actually wrong. I'll explain why and more in a minute. 888-SAY-ESPN is the number to call. This 888-729-3776. You are listening live to Stephen A. on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. Again, we'll be talking about a lot of things today, but that subject is not going anywhere. I promise I'll explain in a few why Serena is wrong. And I challenge anybody to disagree with me. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. That was Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio.
Ow. Yep, you guessed it. I'm a speed bump, so I've got one job. I slow you down. So imagine how I feel about Geico, who does way more. Like, not only could they save you money on car insurance, but they've been around for over 75 years, giving people fast and friendly claim service. Ow. Plus, they got a nifty mobile app that gives you 24/7 access. Ow. Just doing my job, buddy.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more. You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Let me make sure that I'm very, very clear. The chair umpire, reading from an article, I believe it's in the New York Times. The chair umpire, whom Serena Williams called the thief in the women's singles final at the United States Open on Saturday, has long been willing to enforce the rules by the book with the game's biggest stars, male and female. The umpire, Carlos Ramos, a 47-year-old from Portugal, was at the center of controversy in the match, drawing Williams' ire in the second set of a 6-2, 6-4 loss to Naomi Osaka. Ramos gave Williams 3 code of conduct violations for illegal coaching, abusing a racket, and verbally abusing an official, the last of which resulted in Osaka being awarded a game late in the second set. After the match, ladies and gentlemen, Williams was fined $17,000, $10,000 for verbal abuse, the largest fine of the U.S. Open so far, $4,000 for the coaching violation, and $3,000 for the racket abuse. According to the rule book, players are subject to fines up to $20,000 for each of these offenses. That's what they say. Let me get back to what I wanted to say to y'all earlier about why Serena Williams was wrong. Contextually speaking, taking into account all the things that she's overcome in her life and what have you, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the incident in question that transpired on Saturday. The reality of the situation is she's Serena Williams. Do I think she should be accorded special treatment to some degree? Sure. You're asking fans to pay their hard-earned money, and they don't want the outcome compromised in any way. Not to say that that's exactly what happened, because Naomi Osaka was en route to winning. But this is Serena Williams we're talking about here. This is a 23-time Grand Slam champion. This is a woman that is one victory away from tying Margaret Court for the all-time Grand Slam champion record. This is who Serena Williams is. So what you don't want to do is do anything at all, to even come remotely close to compromising the outcome. That's number one. Number two, as Sally Jenkins wrote in the Washington Post, essentially paraphrasing, not quoting her exactly, but essentially paraphrasing, you want to de-escalate the situation when you are an official. And that's a different subject for another day, because we know in Major League Baseball they don't do that. And even though they don't do, in basketball, they do what they can. We've seen referees put themselves at the center of attention throughout NBA history from time to time. Okay? We don't see it that much in football, but we've certainly seen it in basketball, and definitely we see it a lot in baseball. So it's not foreign. If you're going into a competition and you know that you're going up against somebody, it's not just your job to study the opponent. It's also your job to know the temperament of the official in question, because obviously they have the power to impact the game, which is something every competitor recognizes, and you have to act accordingly. But here's where Serena Williams, as much as I want to support her, because I love this woman, as a black man, I appreciate everything she stands for and who she is. I adore her in the greatest ways imaginable. She is just that to me. She is it. But fair is fair. And the reality of this situation, without casting any aspersions on her character, her morals, and certainly not questioning her greatness in any way, Saturday was a bad day for her. This young girl who said before the match she wants Serena. After she won a semifinals match, she says, I want Serena. And the crowd cheered on, and our own, Tom Rinaldi, the great Tom Rinaldi, said, well, why? She said, because she's Serena. You grew up idolizing this girl. You were born in Japan. You lived there for the first 3 years of your life. And now here you come to America. You've been idolizing this girl, Serena Williams, this woman, this wonderful woman, this queen, all your life. You want to go up against the best, because to beat the best, you got to be the best. You got to beat the best. So what happens? She goes up against her. She's smoking Serena. Let's just call it what it is. She's smoking her now. Now, this is Serena, so understand a comeback is not only possible, but likely when it comes to Serena, because she's Serena. She plays to the final bell. She don't surrender to anybody. But when you made the argument against Carlos Ramos, the official, first of all, you accused him of questioning your character. He did no such thing. Because your coach acknowledged he was coaching you. He questioned whether you saw it or not, but he acknowledged he was coaching you. So the official warning that no coaching is allowed is perfectly within his right. Secondly, you go off and you're screaming at him and you're making a scene and you called him a thief. You stole from me. You called me you're a thief. Well, you know what's coming after that. That was perfectly within his right. Now, do I think he should have warned you before penalizing you? Of course I do. You're Serena Williams. And it is the finals. But it's in his right to do that. Then, here's where I really jumped off the edge with Serena. You start talking about there are plenty of men who've done worse. And they haven't had to go through all of this. Well, let's pump the brakes here. We're talking about Carlos Ramos. We're not talking about the bigger issue of gender equity. We're talking about Carlos Ramos. Well, let's look at his history. 2017 French Open. Not only did he penalize Djokovic, giving him a code violation for conduct because he yelled, he also penalized Rafael Nadal, gave him a time violation, and Nadal complained that he thought it was selectively enforced. This year at the 2018 Wimbledon, he gave a code violation to Djokovic again for slamming his racket to the ground. The same thing he did with Serena. This man had a history where he once penalized Venus. So he penalized Venus, and he penalized a host of men, and he penalized Andy Murray at the Olympics in 2016. You said sexism. You didn't say you and him. You implied, if not flat out accused, him of treating you a certain way because you're a woman, when in fact, he's treated men the same way. And see, this is the dicey subject that everybody wants to run from, but I ain't running. This is Stephen A. Smith show, damn it. I make my producers nervous every day because I don't run from anything. If we're talking equity, let's be equitable. The man might be an SOB for all we know. The question is he that with men and women? And if the answer is yes, then it's not sexism. That just means he's an SOB. But it's not sexism. So when I see Serena at the podium talking about maybe it won't work out for me, but it will work out for the next woman, and I just want to bring the issue of gender equity to the forefront because there's some sexism going on or what have you, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, and you've got writers who are writing about this. I ask a simple question. Where's the sexism if the man has been profusely complained about by men as well? That's not sexism. That's just a guy who decided to be an a-hole. That's not sexism. That's a him issue. When you make these arguments, you got to make them count. And I don't think that Serena did neither herself nor the actual cause itself of sexism any favors with this argument. Because there's so many holes in her argument that it gets lost in the shuffle in favor of pointing to her petulance and her behavior as it pertained to the match itself and how it ultimately served to compromise a surreal and phenomenal moment on the part of Naomi Osaka, who instead of crying on the podium, embarrassed and uncomfortable and beyond, should have been in a position to thoroughly enjoy the surreal moment that she had earned. I love Serena. I love what she stands for. I'm not just a fan. I am an admirer of Oz who sits repeatedly in awe of her greatness. Not just as a player and an athlete, but as a person. She is wonderful. I just think that Saturday was not her finest day. Initially, I supported her until I started looking at everything and watching it over and over again and studying every angle and seeing all the things that I saw. And then I said, damn, she was actually wrong here. Referee could have been a bit more diplomatic and not tried to make it about him. But it doesn't make Serena right when she brought up the argument of sexism. That's where her argument was ultimately diluted. And it will forever remain that way. And that's sad. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Your calls and more up next with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio and ESPN News.
Message and data rates may apply.
When did it become okay for men to be lazier, softer, fatter? We need to bring the men of this country back to greatness. And it's easier than ever with Ageless Male Max, a patent-pending formula with an ingredient that helps boost your total testosterone, promoting greater increases in muscle size and twice the reduction of body fat percentage than exercise alone. Plus, an amazing 64% increase in nitric oxide, which can be handy in the gym and in the bedroom. Take your manhood to the max by trying your first 30-day bottle free. Just pay shipping and handling. Not 10 days, not 15 days, but a full 30-day supply free when you text the word LIFT to 797979. Finally, a formula that boosts total testosterone. If your results with Ageless Male Max are too intense, please decrease use. For your free bottle, text LIFT to 797979. Text LIFT to 797979.
Listen up, people. We have a big favor to ask you, and we promise it won't take up too much of your time. You know, our show is supported by some fantastic sponsors, right? Well, we'd love to hear your feedback. Head to podcast.study and fill out a short anonymous survey. That's it. We swear. Again, that's podcast.study.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. Come back to the Stephen A. Smith Show, hour number 2 of the Stephen A. Smith Show, right here with you over the airwaves of ESPN Radio, 250 plus markets across the United States of America, plus ESPN Radio on Sirius XM channel 80, not to mention simulcast live over the national television airwaves of ESPN News. Number to call up as always is 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Let's get to the phones because I got Booger McFarland, new voice of Monday Night Football, coming on with us in approximately 10 minutes or so. You've heard my position on Serena Williams. You've heard my position on a plethora of these games that took place. By the way, I want to put this on everybody on official notice. We could talk Odell Beckham Jr. We could talk Antonio Brown. We could talk Julio Jones. We could talk Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady and everybody else in between. The most explosive player in all of football is Tyreek Hill for the Kansas City Chiefs. This brother's on another level. San Diego Chargers is supposed to be this formidable team that might come out of the AFC and get to the Super Bowl and all of this stuff, even though they've missed the playoffs 7 of the last 8 years. You saw what Kansas City did yesterday? Now, their defense ain't anything to brag home about, but their offense is prolific. The only thing I didn't like about yesterday is that I ain't see Travis Kelce score a touchdown because I want to see him do that end zone dance. One of them anyway. Patrick Mahomes, he looks good. You know, I'm not going to sit up there and lose perspective and all of this other stuff. I will tell you this, though. A lot of people will look good throwing the ball to Tyreek Hill. Just in case y'all wondering. So I want to make sure I pay attention to that. Thirdly, and more importantly, the other thing I want to pay attention to is this. Can we pump the brakes on Jimmy Garoppolo? I know he's got $137 million, $37.5 million. I know that he was undefeated in his 7 starts as an NFL quarterback, 2 with New England, and the last 5 last year with the San Francisco 49ers coming into yesterday's game at Minnesota. But now that you went into a team with a legitimate defense, a Super Bowl championship contender with Kirk Cousins as their quarterback, by the way, can we pump the brakes on Jimmy Garoppolo? Can we do that? Because y'all must have forgot. See, Jimmy Garoppolo, everybody was talking about Jimmy Garoppolo like, oh, what the hell was Robert Kraft doing, the owner of the New England Patriots, coming to the defense of Tom Brady, who still wants to play, who still thinks that he has time left and doesn't think that it's the Jimmy Garoppolo era that should be beginning, and supposedly Bill Belichick was upset about that. Can we stop that now? I'm sure Jimmy Garoppolo can play. I am sure that Jimmy Garoppolo, okay, is going to have a bright future. But I saw balls being underthrown. I saw balls being overthrown. I saw him not reading through his progressions. I saw him making mistakes. He looked very ordinary. Can we pump the brakes on Jimmy Garoppolo? And while we're doing that, can we sit up here and acknowledge that Jameis Winston's immediate future anyway may be in trouble? And it ain't just because of his suspension. My man Carlton in Tampa religiously brags about Ryan Fitzpatrick as if he's the second coming of Tom Brady. And we repeatedly laugh at this man and his ignorance. Even though I would never associate the word ignorance with my buddy Carlton because he's as bright as they come. Incredible, by the way. One of the best callers the station has ever had. But I will say this. My God, if there was ever a time he looked prophetic, it was on this day, because Friday he talked about what Ryan Fitzpatrick was going to do, and he talked about Deshaun Jackson, and he talked about Mike Evans and the crew, and Ryan Fitzpatrick went out there. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, he outdueled Drew Brees. Let's not forget that. He outdueled Drew Brees. Ryan Fitzpatrick outdueled Drew Brees. He didn't throw for more yards because Drew Brees threw for 439 yards. And he completed more of his passes, 37 of 45. Actually, it's around the same percentage. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 21 of 28 for 417 yards. But he won the game. Mike Evans had 7 receptions for 147 yards. Deshaun Jackson had 5 receptions for 146 yards. O.J. Howard had a couple of receptions. Forgot that name for a while. Michael Thomas had 16 receptions for 180 yards for New Orleans, and Kamara had 9 receptions for 112 yards. He was catching the ball more so than running it, but I'm here to tell you, Ryan Fitzpatrick looked nothing short of sensation. And that's why I think it's appropriate to start out hour number 2, giving props to my man Carlton in Tampa, who's on the line with us right now. That was one spectacular performance by Ryan Fitzpatrick, Carlton. I can't deny it.
Max Kellerman and Molly Curum win the gold medal. They get the Oscar for Week 1 NFL propaganda, and you're culpable too, Stephen A.
Oh, Lord. What did I do now, Carlton? I'm your buddy. What did I do?
First off, you have a whole segment on Pat Mahomes, who Max called perhaps the best arm he has ever seen in the NFL.
Wasn't that ridiculous?
Pat Mahomes was 15 of 27. He had 2 1-yard shuffle passes to a running back for touchdowns. He completed 56% of his passes, 52% if you exclude the 2 1-yard shuffle passes to running backs. And Max has him better than Dan Marino and John Elway.
Exactly.
Okay, and then we're on to Jimmy G. Max said he's so good, he had his team in position to win the game.
Evidently he plays defense. Evidently he plays defense too.
The whole game, Stephen A. He was at his 11-yard line at the end of the game before he threw his 3rd interception of the game. And 2 of them were miserable throws. He completed 45% of his passes, Stephen A. He had a QBR of 10.
Okay.
Of 10. Mm-hmm. He now has 8 TDs, by the way, and 8 interceptions since he joined the San Francisco 49ers. Right. And Max has him right up there with Peyton Manning.
And Joe Montana. Let's not forget
that. Your worst, most egregious thing you did this morning is you did not even mention the guy who had perhaps the best first NFL game ever for a backup quarterback. He's 9.5 points underdogs, biggest underdog in week 1 against Drew Brees, arguably the third best quarterback in the league behind Rodgers and Brady in New Orleans, okay?
Right.
Ryan Fitzpatrick had a 156 passer rating.
156.2. Go ahead.
QBR of 97 on a scale of 1 to 100. Both best in the NFL by far in week 1.
Okay.
He had 4 TD passes, 3 of which were bombs. 50 yards, 56 yards, 50 yards, 58 yards, and 36 yards. And not 5-yard passes where the receiver runs for it. 3 bombs. Right. In addition, he ran over the New Orleans safety for a rushing touchdown, literally bowled him over at the goal line, okay? They set their all-time point record, Stephen A. 43 years of Bucs history. They tied their all-time point record. It was the second most offensive yards in the 43-year Buccaneers history. It was the most points ever in a Week 1 NFL game by both teams. And you guys don't mention
Let me stop right there. Hold on, Carlton. That's Stephen A's call. Let me tell you why. Number one, we don't always go to all the games on a Monday. Sometimes we do it on Tuesdays as well because we can't get every single game in because you got all of these games to talk to and you only have a certain number of segments. So sometimes we do it on Monday, sometimes we do it on Tuesday on First Take. That's number one. Number two, Carlton, and more importantly, let's also keep in mind that one of the biggest stories would be, is it Ryan Fitzpatrick or is it that Saints defense? Huge question mark. Point number three, you're a Ryan Fitzpatrick fan. You always have been. Saying Ryan Fitzpatrick, who has a 49-70-1 record as a starter. Saying Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's put forth good games, a lot of good games in his career, only to follow up as the season wanes when he is not as productive and he is not as effective sometimes as he is others. So let's not sit up here and act like, oh my God, Ryan Fitzpatrick is phenomenal and terrific as he was yesterday. And the fact that they may very well need him to be that stationary or the level of balance and leadership and beyond that's needed, particularly with Jameis Winston there. When you've got a guy like him, let's be clear, Carlton, that Ryan Fitzpatrick, for all of your blustering about him, there have been times when even you had to admit he's let you down.
He had 0 weapons when he was 4 years on the Buffalo Bills. He had limited weapons on the Houston Texans. He had limited weapons on the Tennessee Titans.
Come on, Carlton. He's been in the league for years. Carlton, I got all his records right here in front of me. Buffalo, Cincinnati, Jets, St. Louis, Tampa, Houston, Tennessee. He's only got a winning record with one team, which is Tampa. He's 3-1 and 4 starts with them.
What are you talking about? He was 10-5 with the Jets.
No. I'm talking about his overall.
The Jets were 4-12 before he went.
I'm talking about his overall record as a starter with those teams career-wise. I'm not saying he didn't have a winning season. I'm saying overall throughout his career with the multiple teams that he's been with, he's only got a winning record with one team, Carlton.
Stephen A., he not only had a winning season with the Jets, he set the all-time Jets touchdown record in their entire history. He threw for the second most yards ever in Jets history when he was on the Jets.
And then when we expected something from them, what did they do that last game against Buffalo to end the regular season when they missed the playoffs? You gonna forget that one, Carlton?
It was 35-mile-an-hour winds, and the Buffalo Bills controlled the entire freaking game on the ground.
They did.
The Jets defense let them down. Okay. But my point, he has by far the best game of the start of the NFL season.
Yes.
Was a huge underdog. Outdrew Drew Brees when Brees puts up 40 points. And you guys don't even mention it.
I was going to mention it, Carlton. I was going to focus on Ryan
Don't
Fitzpatrick.
Even mention it.
Carlton, I made an executive decision between Monday and Tuesdays based on the stories.
Those Cowboys who put up 8 points. You had to do a segment on them damn Cowboys.
And you also got to remember that a lot of it is predicated on disagreement as opposed to news because it's not sports and it's a debate show. So you got to take those things into consideration too and work with me on that one. But I do hear you.
Tomorrow,
I do hear you.
Actually give Ryan a little bit of credit.
I promise I will.
Biggest upset
Carlton.
And the best performance performance by far of any NFL player in week one.
And Carlton, not only will I give him credit, I'll give you some too. I got to run though, buddy.
There you go.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, my man. Appreciate the call. I love Carlton. I really, really do. Let's go to Chris. You're live with Stephen A. Talk to me, Chris. What's up?
Good afternoon. I'm in a New York state of mind. I'm getting ready for the Jets game tonight.
All right.
This call is about another young quarterback who's in the state of New York that I'm actually worried about.
Who's that?
What are the Buffalo Bills doing?
They're an atrocity. The Buffalo Bills are an atrocity. I mean, listen, this dude, Nathan Peterman, might be the worst quarterback I've ever seen. He's horrible. He's just horrible. There's no way around it. I wish I could. Chris, I'm trying to be nice. I can't believe how bad 24 yards passing, man. 24 yards. That situation is so bad. I mean, Sean McDermott and what he's got going on in Buffalo there. He wouldn't even admit. They asked him about Nathan Peterman. Do you know, Chris, he actually had the audacity to say, I need to watch the film?
Yeah, but my question is this.
Okay.
How do I put my hopefully franchise quarterback in a position he was down 40 to zip?
That's
40
true.
to zip, I'm putting him in there. And the last time, and I told your producer this, the last time I saw Josh Allen in that third preseason game, he was getting chased for his life.
Yep.
I remember his head banging off the turf, and he was grabbing his own head.
It's a horrendous situation in Buffalo right now. I predict this is going to probably be the last season for Sean McDermott there. It's a horrendous situation in Buffalo right now. He digs himself out of this hole. He might be destined to be a great head coach someday, but he is no Sean McVay, not in LA. He's not that dude. It's a disaster in Buffalo right now. I think they may very well be the worst team this decade. And LaShawn McCoy, who I'm cool with, and I sincerely hope there's no guilt attached to the incident involving his girlfriend where she was beat up because of a robber, and they were investigating whether he had something to do with it. It appears he did not. I certainly want to believe that he had nothing to do with it. I hope and pray that that is the case. But everywhere you turn about the Buffalo Bills, they're an atrocity. And to be in Western New York in that cold weather in November and December with a team that awful, I mean, you might not even have concession workers showing up to the stadium to watch them play.
Man, what if they played in MetLife?
Oh, God. I don't know. I appreciate the call, though, Chris. Thank you so much. Marvin, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me, Marv.
Oh, Stephen.
Yes, sir.
How you doing today?
How are you?
Okay, I just want to somewhat disagree with what you said.
Sure, please. Please.
Okay. Now, number one, I disagree with you on three immense points.
Okay.
Number one, Serena had every reason to speak out, Stephen. But for that referee, he could have let that pass.
Stop right there. There's no disagreement there. I agree with that. I didn't say I had a problem with her speaking out. So we agree on your first point. What's your second point?
Okay. The second, I got many, and I don't know if time.
No, just go ahead.
All right. The other reason is they proved the coach did, her trainer did try to give her some signs, but they showed when they watched the eye contact, she did not see it. So by him, the referee said he could have let that pass.
Time out. He didn't penalize her for that. He warned her that you're not allowed to receive coaching. She said she didn't see it. How would he know that? The issue in question is that even though it's common and it takes place all the time, the fact is the books say it's illegal to coach from the box. So the coach should not have done it. So he's the one that's wrong.
Okay. No argument was there.
Okay.
The fact that, can I continue, please?
Go ahead.
Now, let me say this. Serena has went through so much in her career, and not to have to mention this, all the bigotry and the racism that she has to deal with.
We agree.
Most of the commentators and the tennis writers said they did not agree with him. The game was too important. Now, that young lady that won, she was playing a brilliant game, and I am tremendously proud of her. The best African.
Listen, man, she's the best, period. She's the greatest female tennis player who ever lived. Without question.
And that took away. if that match was too important for that referee to step in.
All right, Marvin. Let me respond. Here's where I disagree with you. No one is saying she should not have spoken up. No one is saying that she was wrong to speak out. But she took the issue beyond herself and tried to point to the issue of sexism. If she sits there and says, I have been through too much, or I don't like the way you have approached me, and she laser focused on that, she'd have a stronger case. But when you make the claim of sexism, you have implied, if not flat out directly stated, that what he's doing to you because you're a woman, when in fact he has a history of doing things to men. So the point is that he might have been a prick. He might have been a no good SOB or whatever you want to call him. But when you bring sexism into the equation and you have the respected Sally Jenkins of the Washington Post and others and folks in the media clapping when she brought that up, where is the case for it? He did it to her. He did it to Djokovic. He did it to Nadal. He did it to Andy Murray. He did it to Venus Williams. He did it to a plethora of tennis players who have highlighted that he's rigid and uncompromising and they don't like him. But it's not a gender issue, and that's the problem.
Okay. Now, Andrew Roddick said this morning, he has said far worse than referee and cursed, and he did not give him a warning nor a penalty. Now,
to that particular official?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, okay, that's fine. But Djokovic said otherwise. Nadal said otherwise. Andy Murray said otherwise, et cetera, et cetera. The guy has had a reputation as being hard and rigid, regardless of your gender. That's the point. If you're going to bring up an issue of gender, make sure it's apropos. It's not apropos to bring up gender just because you are a female who disagrees with his position. You have to make sure that there's no cases to point to where men can stand up and say, he did the same thing to us. That's the issue here. And that's where the problem lies. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, Marvin.
And you make a valid point to that point, but also one thing, Stephen, this is no disrespect because I've been watching you before. Only time I disagree with you when you say something about LeBron. Because that's my Cleveland guy.
Listen. The only thing I say about LeBron is that he ain't Jordan. There's not another insult I throw in his direction, and I don't even think that's an insult. He's not Jordan to me. That's all.
I thoroughly disagree. I could jump out a window saying I disagree with that.
Okay. Well, you go ahead and you do that. I give you a 6-time champion that's undefeated. You're giving me a champion with 6 NBA Finals losses. Do you understand that Elgin Baylor and Jerry West are the only individuals in NBA history who have lost more championships than LeBron? So you can argue with me until the cows come home. You'll lose. But I do appreciate you calling, and I thank you for it, and I hope that you'll continue to call and support the show, buddy. Thank you so much. We've got one of the new voices on Monday Night Football. His name is Booger McFarland. Outstanding on college football, now outstanding on NFL football. He's up next with yours truly, right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News.
Craving even more of Stephen A?
Him of all people!
For around-the-clock access to the man?
I'm Stephen A!
You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Stephen A. Smith and on Facebook at Stephen A.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm as happy as a clam.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will be, quote, as happy as a clam, unquote. The Geico legal team cannot accurately verify clams even experience the complex human emotional state known as happiness. As an invertebrate mollusk living half submerged on the ocean floor with no arms, legs, or wireless access, what's there to be happy about? A clam's all like, oh, I'm so happy I didn't get turned into New England clam chowder today. Pronounced regionally as chowder. Chowder. Oh, that's so fun to say. What were we talking about again?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
My honor and privilege to have my next guest on the line. Does an outstanding job, always has, covering college football for years. Now he's one of the new voices on Monday Night Football with my man Joe Tessitore, as well as newcomer to the mix, former Cowboy, future Hall of Fame tight end Jason Witten. His name is Booger McFarland, outstanding football analyst for the family. Now one of the new voices on Monday Night Football. He's with us right now, as he will be every Monday, schedule permitting, of course. Booger, what's going on, big time? How are you, man?
What's going on, Stephen A? I sensed a little angst there, giving the Cowboys some love there. I know how you feel about the Cowboys.
You know how I feel about the Cowboys. Listen, Jason Witten's a nice guy. Jason Witten's a nice guy, and I'm confident he'll do a good job. And believe it or not, I don't have any problem with the Cowboys. It's their fans that I can't stand. I think they're the most nauseating, disgusting fan base in the history of America. They get on my last damn nerves. You know what? You know what it is, Booger, about the Cowboys, just in case you haven't heard me say it. They can go 3-13, right? And the season ends, and they'll be like, we're going to win the Super Bowl next year, right? It don't matter. It don't matter. Or a couple of years ago when they went 3-13, they were talking all of that junk about how they were going to win the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers breaks their heart, Booger. They turn around, and literally 15 minutes later, after they lost to Green Bay, that's all right. We got next year. We're winning next year. That's what disgusts me about the Cowboys, man.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a long year for the Cowboys. I'm on record. I've told everybody I think the offensive line, we continue to throw around that they're the best in the game. They're not. I think the Eagles' offensive line is the best. And unless Dak Prescott continues to mature and evolve in his game, their lack of playmakers on the outside of receiver and the defense, Sean Lee tries his hardest, but he just needs some help over there. I think it's going to be a rough year for the Cowboys.
Well, I think so, too. But let me talk to you about the Oakland Raiders, because you're going to be one of the voices. You're covering that game tonight, that second game. There's a doubleheader on ESPN tonight. The Jets are visiting the Lions at around 7. And then, of course, at 10 p.m., it'll be the Oakland Raiders hosting the Los Angeles Rams. You're calling that game with Jason and Joe Tessitore as well. What are your thoughts about the Raiders this year, particularly now that Khalil Mack is gone?
Well, I don't condone any form or any shape or way when you get rid of one of the best players in the game. And so I thought the trade of Khalil Mack to the Bears by the Raiders was asinine. I thought when you look at John Gruden trying to build a franchise and trying to get the Raiders back to what they were when he and Al Davis was together, you got to build it around something. He's got the best quarterback that he's ever had while coaching in Derek Carr. Mm-hmm. He's got a really, really good interior of his offensive line. Amari Cooper, I think, is going to be one of the young breakout stars in the league if he continues to not drop the football at receiver. But overall, I think the Raiders are a year away from being a year away, if you know what I mean. But they have pieces, but they don't have a complete team, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
How high are you on Derek Carr?
I'm pretty high on Derek Carr. I don't think he's in the group with the big boys that we talk about with Rodgers and Brady and Breeze and all that. But when you go to that next group, when you throw in Matt Ryan and Roethlisberger and Stafford, I think he deserves to be right there. Last year was a down year. But if you go back and look at the years before that, he's gotten better each and every year. I think John Gruden coming in, who, by the way, I think is one of the most brilliant offensive minds I've ever seen. I saw it up close in Tampa. He's going to help Derek Carr. The key for Derek is he's going to have to get help on the outside. Jordy Nelson will bring some help. Amari Cooper cannot drop the football. I think the offense is going to be really good, even though I don't think the team is going to be great.
Booger McFarland right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. Listen, I got to admit to you, and I need your help with this. I like John Gruden. He's our former colleague here, and I know how brilliant he is as a football mind. I know how committed he is to excellence, and I got a lot of love for him in that regard. My problem is not with him. My problem is with the Raiders. I don't understand how you can find $100 million for a coach that hadn't coached in 10 years. In the previous 6 years, he had coached in the NFL, hadn't won a playoff game, and then went to the playoffs twice in 6 years. So that's a 16-year gap since the last time he won something, which was the Super Bowl, of course. But you can't find money for Khalil Mack. I don't understand that thinking. Can you explain that to me?
Well, I don't quite understand it either. And the reason they gave John Gruden the amount of money they did, Steve, have you ever been starving for something, especially like a donut, and you get to the donut shop and they got one left? You're willing to pay a little bit more money than the sticker price for that donut. That's what the Raiders were with John Gruden. They tasted just a little bit of that Gruden magic back when the Chucky dolls came out and he was one of people's 50 most beautiful people. They want that back because the Raiders have kind of been irrelevant for the last few years, so they were willing to pay a little bit more just to be relevant again. Now, as it pertains to Khalil Mack, I don't buy the stories about, hey, we didn't have any money, the cash flow. The Raiders are one organization. And if you got the money to pay John Gruden $100 million, I realize the players are under a different structure called a salary cap. However, from a cash flow standpoint, there's only one pot in the organization. It's called the Oakland Raiders. So if you got enough money for the coach, what does it look like to the fan base? More importantly, what does it look like to the players in the locker room when you can't take care of a guy that you drafted, that you raised, he grew up in your building, and he's developed into one of the best players in the league, and so easily you allow him to get away? That says a lot in the locker room. I don't care what they say.
Booger McFarland right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. What are your thoughts about the Los Angeles Rams? I consider them to be probably the second best team in the NFC. One could argue they're the best now that they've added Ndamukong Suh, Marcus Peters, and Aqib Talib. Everybody's been talking about the Raiders and John Gruden. It wouldn't shock me at all if the Rams blew them out tonight. I'm hoping that's not the case, but it wouldn't surprise me if it happened.
So if you're saying that the Rams may be the second best, I'm assuming you're going with Philly as number one?
Correct.
Okay. To me, the Rams built their team around this defense. You know, Aaron Donald, in my opinion, is at worst the third best player in the league behind Brady and Rodgers. I think he's absolutely sensational. He deserved to get every dime that he got. The Rams tasted just a little bit of that playoff success last year, and they realized where they were weak at. They didn't have the swag on defense, bring in Talib and Peters, and they couldn't stop the run up front, so you bring in Ndamukong Suh. You pair him with Brockers and Donald and LaMarcus Joyner at safety. Now you have 6 or 7 guys that are capable of making first-team All-Pro in the National Football League. Their defense should be dominant. If it's not, shame on them. Offensively, you have one of the young minds who, by the way, John Gruden created in Sean McVay when he worked for him in Tampa, who is leading a young quarterback who has come a long way. Remember Jared Goff on Hard Knocks? He couldn't even get the play out of the huddle.
That's right.
Last year, the Rams had the best offense in football. Mm-hmm. How does that happen? Sean McVay, an offensive mind. But the engine that makes the Rams go, Stephen A., and you're going to hear us talk about tonight, is Todd Gurley. We talk about the best running back in the league, 3-down back. Everybody says Le'Veon Bell. I'm not so sure. The best 3-down back in football, Todd Gurley, is going to show you tonight why I consider him that guy. He can play first and second down. And, oh, by the way, he led the Rams in catches last year. Nobody talks about that. The running back led the Rams in catches. So this team is loaded, Stephen A. They should be able to win 12 or 13 games, barring health. They're going to have to go out and do it, though, because now they're not going to sneak up on anyone. This year, everybody's going to show up knowing, hey, you guys are the dream team. You guys are everybody's pick. So now, let me know if you do it. Show me you can do it when we're shooting at you.
Booger McFarland right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, the new voice of Monday Night Football, along with Joe Tessitore and, of course, the one and only Jason Witten. He's right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. Who's your biggest pleasant surprise this weekend, week 1 of the NFL season?
Oh, wow. The biggest pleasant surprise for me would probably be the Buccaneers, because nobody gave them any shot whatsoever to go out in New Orleans. New Orleans is kind of the darling pick based on what happened, kind of losing the game to Minnesota last year on a fluke play. So now everyone says, okay, they're going to come right back and pick up where they left off. How soon did we forget that defense in New Orleans wasn't very good 2 years ago? And that same defense showed up again yesterday. And Ryan Fitzmagic, Stephen A., your boy, put up 40-something points on the Saints. I think that was the biggest shocker. And I know everyone is saying when Jameis gets back, hey, if you got a quarterback that's throwing for 400 yards and putting up 4 touchdowns, how do you take him out of the lineup? So to me, that's a situation to watch. Not only the Buccaneers winning, going on the road to win against one of the NFC South favorites, but also taking a look at the quarterback position and see where it goes in the coming weeks once Jameis Winston comes off suspension.
Well, you especially don't take him out to put in a knucklehead. Because Jameis Winston, listen, I'm not listening. The bottom line is, man, I'm rooting for Jameis Winston, but more importantly, I'm rooting for him to get his life together and not making the stupid mistakes that he's made. No question about that. But let me ask you this. Who's your biggest disappointment of the weekend?
Probably in the same game, New Orleans, because I consider Drew Brees, there's no doubt he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. There's no doubt that the Saints have every weapon known to man offensively. Sean Payton is one of the best play callers in the league. So with all the hype around your team, home opener, everyone is saying, last year you should have been in the NFC title game, you lost on a fluke, and you come out week 1 at home and you lay an egg. To me, there was a shot of Drew Brees on the sideline where he looked as if he didn't know what happened. We practiced all offseason for the last 9 months, and this is what we do. To me, that was a shock not only to the fans, but I got to think that was a shock to Sean Payton and Drew Brees losing to a backup quarterback at home in the opener. The New Orleans Saints were my biggest disappointment.
Booger McFarland, I'm going to let you go, but I'm going to let you go with this statement. Even though it might not qualify as a big disappointment, I don't know if I've seen a team, certainly not a quarterback, as bad this decade as Nathan Peterman and the Buffalo Bills. I think it was so bad. I think they might be the worst team I've seen this decade. And Nathan Peterman threw for 24 yards. I don't even think Colin Kaepernick has to pursue the collusion case against the National Football League. All he has to do is make his case and say that Nathan Peterson is in this league. Show highlights of Nathan Peterman and say, but I can't have a job. Really? That's how bad it was, Booger. That's where I'm at, man. That's where I'm at with it.
Hey, I don't know if it can qualify as a disappointment because we saw him throw 5 picks against San Diego, Los Angeles last year, so we knew what he was. If you really want to go out on a huge limb and upset Will Cain, tell Will that the Cowboys' offensive line, the much ballyhooed offensive line, was the biggest disappointment because when you talk about having the best offensive line, there's no way that your number 4 overall draft pick tailback, Ezekiel Elliott, should only rush for 70 yards. There's no way to have behind the best line in football.
Booger McFarland, good luck tonight, man. I'll be watching you, man. Congratulations again. It's well deserved. Looking forward to you being the preeminent voice on Monday Night Football with my man Joe Tessitore and of course Jason Witten. Thanks a lot, buddy. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll talk soon.
Anytime. Thanks, Stephen A.
All right. The one and only Booger McFarland right here with Stephen A.
Did you know ADT can design and install a smart home just for you? A new smart home at your service, customized for your lifestyle. ADT can even close your garage door while you're at your kid's soccer practice to help keep criminals and critters on the sidelines. Now, that's what I call goal-keeping service. It's all controlled from the ADT app or the sound of your voice and backed by 24/7 protection. Visit ADT.com/smart to learn more about how ADT can help keep your home safe and smart.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it! To the phones we go before we get on out of here for the day. Let's go to Jonathan. Real quick, you're live with Stephen A. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hey, Stephen A., the great Stephen A. How you doing, brother?
I'm all right. You only got a minute. Go ahead, buddy.
I apologize. Well, Stephen A., I know that you're an important man. I'm hoping that you can get a message to the GM of the Green Bay Packers. I'm a huge Green Bay Packers fan. They passed up on Khalil Mack, and as you saw last night, he came through and was just wrecking everything. And I'm hoping that you can just tell time they have a chance to sign a guy like Khalil Mack.
They got to get their act together and get Aaron Rodgers some help if they ever hope to capture another Super Bowl. But I appreciate the call, man. Thank you so much. Let's go to Brad. You're live with Stephen A. Go ahead, Brad.
Oh, hey, Stephen A. Yeah, my only wish here is that Serena would have really taken out her anger on her coach. I've been following tennis for a while, and I feel like it would have been better served to go after her coach and say, what were you thinking, and not really go after the umpire like that. It's been 30 years of watching, you know.
Yeah, he might have a good point because, I mean, after all, it was illegal what he was doing, even though they do it all the time, and everybody acknowledges that. That doesn't mean he wasn't breaking the rules. I get your point. I appreciate it. Jerry, you're live with Stephen A. Real quick, Jerry, go ahead.
Yeah, the problem is that Serena's coach is not really the trouble here. The problem is the referee. When you put your hands on the scale, you don't do it for petty reasons. Looking to go after coaching is a petty reason. If she did throw a racket and break it, that's when you begin. That's when the count starts.
Well, you got to remember. You got to remember, but Jerry, you got to remember, she wasn't penalized for the coach thing. She was warned about it, but the penalty came when she smashed her racket, A, and then B, when she called him a thief.
But what I'm saying is the count should start at the racket smashing. Nobody counts the coaching stuff. A lot of people see it, and they don't say anything about it. The fact that he chooses to start there tells me that he's petty. As a judge, one of the things you do when you know rules and you know the law, you don't rely on the petty. So he started. Secondly, when she came over and she spoke to him, she decided to speak to him in a very careful, very restrained manner, and she thought that it had been ironed out, that he had rescinded this notion that it was coaching. And so this is why when she was called a second second time.
I got
you. And it went from warning to something else. She exploded.
Yeah, we got to get on out of here. I get your point. That is a very valid point that you point out, Jerry, and I appreciate the call. Got to get on out of here for the day. I'm looking forward to Monday Night Football. Go Jets against the Lions tonight, and, of course, the Raiders and the Rams. I expect the Rams to win that game big time.